Alright, good morning and welcome to this lecture. Alright, Inas, I would say thank you for joining. I really appreciate the fact that you've taken out your time to join this, and I really hope this adds a lot of value to you. Now, before we proceed, uh, this is a vessel that advocates Christ, and I would crave your indulgence to let me do this unashamedly. So, in as much as possible as you'll be taking knowledge, you'll be getting knowledge from here, it would really be useless for you if you are going to come to acknowledge and accept the person of the Christ. He is the one that will give meaning and real usefulness and value to what you be learning in this place. To thank you, with that being said, I would love us to proceed. Welcome once again. So, this lecture was sponsored by Medillery. Now, Medillery is a platform where you can get designers in for free, and you really don't have to possess any background knowledge in design before you can make use of Medillery as a platform. So to get started, you could visit www.medillery.com and you will sure be on your way to creating free designs. Alright, so in this lecture, our major focal point will be presenting logos and identity systems to clients. How do you do this in such a way that you have less rejection and you're able to communicate as accurately as possible? So first thing I would love us to consider is this: presenting logos is a science, not an art. So as to every science, there are specific processes and procedures which should be followed in this to get a predictable result. So if you'll be considering the logo or the identity system as the product, then the presentation itself is the packaging. So we sustain the understanding that some products actually sell better because of the packaging, not necessarily because the product itself is good or is quality in a way, but the packaging is what really sells it. While vice versa, some products are actually better, but the packaging is very poor. So remember, at this stage of presenting, this is where you are getting everything you internalized from the client. You are translating it visually and you are bringing them back to the client. So at this point, there has been no perceived in any form of what you have done for the client. So this is the point where you're just bringing everything back to the client as a form of feedback. So I remember then when I started, I would send logos on white backgrounds as JPEG to the client. I think I'll do that via WhatsApp. I'll just send it like that, and I will expect the client to make a decision whether do you like this, do you like that, whether or not they like what they could see. And even at some point, I think I would send at least up to 10 or more than 10 to 20, so 10 to 20 concepts to the client, expecting them to make a very good decision. And really, the engagements were not really, although some of them I think, but it isn't an appropriate way to do that. So if you have been doing that before, I would advise that you stop that from now. This is one of the reasons you have to stop that, because your clients are neither designers nor creative directors, so you should stop treating them like one. Really, your clients don't see things the way you do. You are the designer, so the responsibility of expertise is on you. So when you send them a lot of concepts like that, expecting them to make a very good decision. I think that's a very bad place to be. It's a very dangerous place to be. So from now on, I would advise you stop doing that if you have been doing that before. Now, the real reason why this is very important is to manage and control revisions. Now, I know I can suggest some of us have been here before, revisions back and forth, where the client says, okay, can this be a little bit bluish? Can this be a little bit pinkish? Can this red be toned down a little? Or could we try this kind of this concept? I just need to see how it would look like. So you could save yourself the whole stress, the whole time and all and intellectual investment by following through this process and learning and understanding this process and following it through. And with this, you'll be able to manage revisions, you'll be able to control revisions, and you'll be able to get real results and value from what you are doing. So before jumping into the presentation proper, like I said earlier, or like we established earlier, this is the point where you're just coming back to the client after you've analyzed everything you've been able to understand from either the brief or the discovery section or the conversations you've had before time. So this is where you're coming back to present everything to them visually, saying, okay, I understood what you said, what you've told me you want, and this is what is being translated from what you said you wanted. So here are a few steps to take before a presentation proper. So first thing is a solid discovery. Now I got this from Ben Bonds of the Future. It says a solid discovery. The idea behind this is that you have to be able to identify a specific problem or a specific objective or specific objectives for which the project is starting. So you don't just go in blindly. You have a very solid ground to stand upon, a specific pain point, a specific objective. For instance, could be the reason behind the new identity could be that the brand wants to appear more friendly, or the brand is evolving, wants to appear more modern, or the brand really wants to generate more revenue or generate more visibility in the market sphere. So as much as possible, don't skip this step for anything. Ask the right questions, make the right discovery before you move forward. All right, so the next step to take is collaborative steps. Now don't just go blind on your client. Okay, after the discovery session, then just jump into the work like that, and you make sure you carry your client along as you take each step. So there are a lot of ways to do this. Make sure your clients are very well informed. For instance, now to a typical mind, the logo design process looks like this. You move from point A straight to point B, where point A is where you discuss, and point B is the final result. But really, it really doesn't look like this. This is what it looks like in real time. So you have from point A, okay, the other circles are not the dot, but you have from point A, then you have point A version 1, point A version 2, point B version 1B, then get to the end of the project. So as much as possible, take collaborative steps. It really helps a lot, because when you take collaborative steps, you get the idea, you're able to understand your client's motive, and even at the very end, you would be able to really communicate effectively with them. So for instance, now we have something you could use stylescapes, mood boards, and the likes. Now this is a minimal style scape. This is not a complete or a very broad style scape as such. This is a very small style scape. Now this was for a finance brand which which was handled at Squilla. This was for a finance brand. So we have the values as their qualities, rather the brand attributes as independent, determined, and reliable. Independent, determined, and reliable. So before any work was done, this was shown to the client that, okay, does this capture what you would love to see? Does this capture the kind of feel you would love to see your brand look like? And this was a very good point for the client, for it was able to make the clients were able to make a very good decision, not just jumping straight to showing them the final result. No, so you're able to take little steps by little by little. So the advice is to take out everything you've learned from the brief, or if you're using a brief, the discovery section, take everything out and present it in a style scape like this. Now you might understand it as mood boards, but style scapes are more extensive than mood boards themselves. They are more explanatory, more extensive, and more elaborate than mood boards. So take it out into a style scape and present it to the client. Okay, this is the direction we want to go into. These are the colors we would love to use. This is the style we would love to use. This is what we think your ideal client looks like. This is what we think it is. Does this capture what you would love to see? So then from there you're able to move forward and take very, very accurate steps. All right, so the next step will be an excellent work. So you don't just do a wishy-washy work and just present it to the client and expect a very good feedback. No, in as much as possible, putting time into the work, putting excellence into the work. And the last step would be using the appropriate tools. Now basically here we use Photoshop. We use Adobe Creative Suite here. We use Illustrator, Photoshop, for the vector illustrator, for the mockups we make use of Photoshop. For presenting, if you are a Mac user, Keynote is a very, very good software for presenting, but really doesn't make any doesn't cause any kind of disparity or so. So if you are making use of Windows, you could just like I'm doing, you could make use of softwares that you feel are more appropriate or are more useful for you. So with this being said, we jump into building a presentation itself. Alright, so building the presentation itself. Alright, so when you get to start building the presentation, the first thing you do is start from the beginning. You start at the beginning, at the very beginning itself. So let's quickly establish this. These presenting logos are best done in person. It's best done in person. So you could actually schedule a Zoom video call, a virtual call, or and if it is very possible, you could meet with a client one-on-one. In any case, but try as much as possible to dissuade from sending in your presentations as PDFs, then expecting the client to go through it and just understand it. No, it's more effective to do it in person. So the first step to take is start at the very beginning. By this, you go back, you do a refreshing, you go back to the very purpose of the project. What was the reason? What did you discover at the first point of engagement with the client? So you could just you could say something like this, remembering that you could say, okay, if you would remember, now talking to your client now, our goal is to build an identity that would, then insert the pain points or the problem. Or as you could go this way by including a caveat for design. You could say, okay, just a fact that pertains to design. You could say, okay, designing a logo isn't really much about what you like or dislike. It is really much about what works well for your brand. The idea is to start at the very beginning, lay the very solid foundation, refresh the client's memory on the reason you're working together on this. And after you have done this, you recap the steps that you have taken together. So you could fall back to the brand attributes you were able to uh, surface at the point of discovery, the major points you were able to see, and the steps you were able to take together, which you could reshow the stylescape once more, or the mood board as the case may be, or the brief itself. You could present this once more to the client, just refreshing their memories on what you've done. Okay, so you could start this process by saying something like this: before we move forward, let's step back and review the process till date. So you could go back and say, okay, from this point we established that we would create an identity that would either gain you more visibility in the market, or would create an identity that would help you integrate easily into the modernity of the time. And okay, we went from here and decided to do consider these following stylescapes or these mood boards or whatsoever. But I would advise you learn how to use make and use stylescapes. So if you would love to do this, okay, you could visit thefuture.com, or you could reach out to Medillery himself, so he would be able to reach out to me in any way, and I should be able to help you out with this. Alright, so meaning that you could reshow the stylescapes once more, and after reshowing the stylescapes, you could establish the one that was chosen by the client. Then you move forward once more again. So this is the point where you present your work. Step 3, you present the work. And how do you do this? You do this using slides. Now basically, I would love to establish that your the logo itself is a very useless brand element without a solid context. Now listen, I would love you to understand this. The logo is a very useless element without any solid context. So a logo would not live only on paper or on the software that was used to design it. No, it would need to be used on across different touch points, which is where the work comes in, which is why you have to be able to incorporate mockups to help your clients really get into what their logos will look like at every point of interaction with their clients. So as much as possible, try to keep every option you are displaying at 3, a maximum of 3 options, at most a maximum of 3 options, and they should be very closely related. So in as much as you continue, make sure you explain the thought process behind each of the projects. Make sure you explain the thought process behind each of the options you are showing. Explain the thought process behind it. So, and each logo should be presented at the same sequence as each other slides. So, or this is you could go in this you could go using this. So the first thing you have when presenting using the slides is this should be what your slides should look like. First, the isolated logo on white, so it looks something like this. So you just present this to the client, and the next thing, now the idea behind this is to help your client see what the logo looks like in a lot of negative space, such that you give room for the logo to breathe, and there is no surrounding support from the environment, so the logo has enough time to breathe, enough space to breathe, and the clients are able to take it in fully. So okay, then the next thing is a split screen monochrome. So this gives your client the option of seeing what the logo looks like on a dark background, and even in another kind of environment itself. So the clients might have been wondering, okay, it's color, okay, what is this in color? So this should answer their question as much as possible. So the next slide would be standard mockups. By standard mockups, I mean letterheads, envelopes, business cards, stationaries, as much as possible, the normal or the standard assets every brand would actually have at inception. So this is what the standard mockups are. Like we established, the logo is not really useful without any context. So this is why you are doing this. This is why you'll be making use of mockups while presenting. So this would be your third slide. So at this point, you try as much as possible to get your clients into seeing, okay, wow, on a mug, okay, this is what it will look like. Okay, on the letterhead, wow, this is what the logo will look like. On an envelope, this is what the logo will look like. And caveat at this point, please make sure what you are presenting is on color. It is it is on brand rather. You follow each color you presented at the level of your stylescape or your mood boards. At the level of your stylescapes or your mood. So for as much as each and every one of us here that don't really understand what stylescapes are, I would say you visit www.thefuture.com, thefuture futur.com, thefuture.com. So you'll be able to get access materials that would help you understand that very much better. And in any case where you would need further assistance, you could reach out to Medillery official. You could reach out to Medillery directly. It will be sure to help you out. All right. So after you have your standard mockups, you move on to the small format mockups. So the idea behind the small format mockups is for you to place the logos in very, very small applications. So you think about every point where the logo will appear as small as possible. So here we have it at the favicon, and even on a wristband, even on a website, on a desktop website. So as much as possible, each instance where the logo would appear as minimal as possible, you could present this also. And at this point, the clients might get excited and be like, oh wow, how much would that cost? Maybe in this instance now, okay, on a wristband, okay, how much would that cost? And that could be another extra, it could be another point of engagement with you, which could extend a contract and even improve your trust in the sight of the client. All right, so moving forward, the next slide will be large format mockups, and as it implies, it includes anything that puts the logo on a large screen. So it could be billboards, wayfinders, signages, interior graphics, and more. So whichever application puts the logo on a very large screen should be included on or in this slide. All right, so you end the presentation. Also, you wrap up with the logo on a white, isolated on a white background again. So this serves as a kind of closure, and it will be very, very most useful for you to remind them that these are examples of what the logo looks like in context. This here is what you'll be working with throughout the brand if they would go for this concept. So repeat the same process for all. This is the fourth step. Repeat the same process for all. That is, you repeat the same slides, the same context, the same application for each and every one of them, every one of your other concepts to present to your client. And at the end, you could have a slide that shows the four logos, the four of them on a single page. Is it a single slide? The three logos on a single slide. You could have that. That is optional. It's a very optional slide. You could have it, and you could choose not to have it. Now, after all this has been done, the atmosphere gets a little bit okay. So what next? So this is the time to ask targeted questions. So you ask targeted questions at this point, because it's at this point the client might be okay. After this, what's next? So it is up to you, except in instances where the clients choose to do the talking first. It's very, very most useful for you not to leave the atmosphere blank or leave everywhere blank. After the whole process of presenting, you ask targeted questions at this point. So examples of questions you could ask would be, so did we miss the mark completely? At this point you could be like, okay, have we done? It's just similar to, okay, have we done total? What we have done, is it totally ineffective? So this helps you to create a kind of soft landing for everything that you have done. So if you made use of user profiles during your discovery section, you could go back to your user profile and pick out a name of one of the users and ask, how do you think this user would see this? So the idea behind this is you are trying as much as possible to direct or take away every form of personal preference out of this, but trying to help them see what really works, what is more effective for what they would love to achieve. So any question you will be asking should direct clients away from personal preference statements. So as is established, design is an objective endeavor. It's not a subjective endeavor. So you could stay away from questions like, okay, do you like this? Or what do you think about this? Do you like this? What do you think about this? So questions like that, you could try as much as possible to stay away from them. Help them to think out of what they might be seen as personal taste or personal preference. Help them to think out of it and place it in their place your users or place whoever will be interacting with the brand at the center of what the decision making process would agree upon. So you could also say, did we take the step in the right direction to solve? So you could input the problem which you were able to extract at the first stages of interaction at the discovery section. So you could include this kind of question also. But the basic idea behind this, asking this kind of questions, is not to fall into the trap of getting personal preferences out. The idea is to stay as objective as possible, help them to see what really works well for what they want to do. Step 6, don't expect feedback at that point in time. So as much as possible, try to give your clients time to take it all in and make an accurate decision. So you could ask questions like, um, okay, you could move forward by setting timelines and expectations. So this is step number 7, set timelines and expectations. So you could ask questions like, do we expect a feedback in the next 48 hours or in the next 1 week? The idea behind doing this is not to leave it open-ended, so that you have something to fall back with and you're able to work in time and with much more effectiveness. So here we have come to the end of this lecture, and I hope this has added a lot of value to you. In any case of any questions and you're seeking further clarity, you could drop it in the comment section, or you could reach out to Medillery directly, and your questions, your considerations and all would be openly addressed. All right, with that being said, I would really love to appreciate you for taking out your time to see this. Say thank you, thank you, thank you so much. All right, I am Marvellous David, and it has been so great to share this with you. I pray this helps you a lot and have a God-filled design career.